welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Polina Emelianova, and today we have back with us Cinda Christie. She's the counselor at the Trinity Counseling Center here in Medford, and also a former teacher, right?
Teacher, counselor in the schools, yes.
And the mother of 3 grown children now.
Yes.
They're not teenagers anymore, although no.
Well, 19,
one is a teenager.
21, and 24.
All right. Well, today we're talking about dating, and I guess my first question is, why are we talking about dating?
Well, I think we're talking about dating because I think it's a timely topic. It's summertime, and we have a lot of singles here in Medford, and a lot of people who are looking for that perfect someone, and Christians, you know, that's a whole area for Christian singles to navigate and to do it. You know, there's the secular way of dating, and then, you know, what's the biblical way to date, or the godly way to pursue dating? Do
you see the problem among your friends, and that there is a problem the way Christians date? Well,
I think the boundaries can get blurred, and you know, the world says, you know, meet someone, you know, immediately get involved with them physically, move in with them, find out if you're compatible. And you know, that's the world's way.
So what's the Christian, what's the biblical way?
Well, I think that the biblical way would be basically making sure that you're honoring God in your relationships, and you're honoring yourself as God's temple, and that you are not just giving yourself away to somebody, and that you are following, you know, the principles God's outlined for us.
So some things that we need to consider before?
Well, I think the first thing to consider is to put this matter before the Lord and to ask God to direct you in this area of dating. He cares about that. He cares about every aspect of our lives, and this is an area He certainly cares about. And I think of that verse, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. And that includes dating.
Is there too much pressure, you think, around us to date for single people? Because if you come to church, you know, a lot of activities, and you see families around, and everybody, if you're a single woman in your 20s, in your 30s, and probably a man too, everybody constantly asks you, are you dating? Are you in a relationship? When you get married? When you're going to have kids? And all that pressure almost tells you that being single is wrong. But nowhere does it say that it's wrong.
No, nowhere at all. And as you know, Paul was single, and he talked about, you know, telling people to stay single because your focus is more on Christ than on another person. And so biblically, you know, you're fine to be single, but it's true, there is a lot of pressure to find someone, be married, and if you're not there, I think there is a little bit of a sense like, well, what's wrong with you, or haven't you met someone yet? And there is that pressure, and I know people in the church, meaning well, you know, will ask that question a lot of single folks.
So when women that you counsel come to you, or even men, I'm sure you get both sides of the story, and they feel like they have to start dating to fulfill whatever other areas in their lives that are lacking something. Do you ever tell them that they're not ready? I mean,
yes.
Are they always ready to date? Or
oh, no, they're not at all. And thank you for bringing that up, because I think that if you have just gone through a divorce, or you've just broken up from, you know, a serious relationship, you are wounded and you're vulnerable, and you should not date. You should not date for a while. And if you've been divorced, say you were married for 20 years, it takes 1 year of healing for every 4 or 5 years that you were married. So that would mean 4 to 5 years of being single. And a lot of people don't want to do that. It's 6 months after the divorce, they're online, they're looking, they're trying to find someone right away, and I've seen it happen over and over where they do meet someone, get involved, even marry within 6 months, and then wake up and go, oh my goodness, I don't really know this person, I rushed, I wasn't ready. I've seen it.
So the qualities that we look for, and when we go into the dating, and whether you've just recently broken up with someone, what are the qualities that we should look for as Christians?
Well, I think you want to, if you want to look at the biblical model, you're wanting to look at someone's character. I think that, you know, the shows like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, that, I mean, I know of a whole group of Christian single women that get together, you know, every Monday night to watch that show. And I think it's dangerous to do that, because you're putting yourself in the world's view of what's, you know, what do you look for in a man or a woman, and it's not really, I mean, it's not realistic at all, as you know. Have you ever watched the show?
Yeah. Years
so
ago,
it's a fantasy thing, you know, and of course it's wonderful, the exotic islands, and you know, this gorgeous man and all, and how many of those relationships really even last? I think there's only been one or two over all the years. So I would say, don't just look on the outside appearance, but look at character. You know, what is their personality? Are they walking with the Lord? Are they growing spiritually? Are they humble? Are they kind? Do they display the fruits of the Spirit? I love that. You know, what are the fruits of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. And if someone's got those qualities, then, you know, they could be potentially a great mate.
And that's something that you learn once you start dating, actually.
It's true.
So you, in a way, you have to take that step of faith and kind of say, okay, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to trust God that He put that person in my life and get to know Him.
Yes, and it's true. You put it before the Lord. And for some people, they meet that one person and they're the one, and for others they date, and there's nothing wrong with dating, as you know, as long as you're keeping yourself pure and being careful physically. It's an opportunity to know yourself and to know the other person and to ask good questions and to, you know, just explore what it is that you want in that mate.
Yeah, to know yourself. Do you see a lot of people going into the relationship not knowing themselves and looking for that other person to help them discover some things about themselves?
Right. Well, I think it's that person that's kind of a half a person looking for another person to be the other half, instead of being the whole person in Christ looking for another whole person. And I think if you go into it looking for someone else to, you know, meet all your needs or, you know, fulfill all your dreams, you're putting a lot of pressure on them to kind of fill the voids in your own life, and that's not a healthy approach. That's not truly being, you know, letting Christ fill you first, becoming whole in Him, and then seeking a partner. It's a very different view.
Yeah. And do you think, I would kind of assume that, okay, let me back up. What's the purpose of dating?
Well, the purpose of dating is to, I believe, find a mate, a person
to get married.
To get married, yes.
Do you think a lot of people go into it? Is this why there's so many problems in this dating world, that we go into dating? A lot of people go into dating just for the fun of it, not thinking of the goal, or are we thinking too much about the goal, and then we're so tense and we're so concerned about, is this my husband?
Yeah, it's
I have
too
to know on the first date.
Yeah, it's too extreme. And actually, well, it's interesting. I know two situations where a person, you know, was recently divorced, you know, middle-aged woman, and really wanting to have fun, and so going out dating a lot, meeting lots of different men who would begin to fall in love with her. And yet she didn't set boundaries, led them on, eventually had to break up, they were crushed, and this happened more than once. And so she was playing with them. And I don't think that's okay, and I don't think you should do that to people. And so there's that side of it, and then there's the other side of it. I was talking to a young man in his 20s, and a Christian young man, and he said there's just so much pressure. He feels like he can't even ask a girl out for just coffee or to do something without her thinking they're going to get married. So I think it's kind of tough out there.
Yeah, so there's always a balance, but and probably the way you think about marriage, you know, unfortunately, I think even for some Christians, it's not that sacramental anymore. You know,
Sacred.
the marriage is just a stage. You know, you sign papers, so you know, church marriage, obviously,
Right.
being sanctified, but we've forgotten that it's a sacrament. It's a holy thing that happens under God, and
Yes.
so to get to that point, you really have to. You know, it's not a one day journey.
No,
it's
no,
hard
it
work.
isn't. No, it is, and like I said, like shows like The Bachelor give you the impression that you meet someone, and then all your dreams come true, and life is wonderful, and that's just not reality. That's not the reality of raising children and having laundry and bills to pay, and somebody gets sick, and you know, you have trouble. Life is hard.
So, what are the advice you give to your children? You have three.
Yes,
you have two daughters and a
two
son.
daughters and a son. The two girls are in college, and my son is out in the working world. And they've all done some dating, and they've called me quite a few times to ask for help, and we just kind of discuss what's going on with them and what are the, you know, about this other person. Do they really like them, or is it just somebody to hang out with? Is it somebody they really want to pursue? Do they have the good character traits? And it's complicated.
Well, I do want to ask you some questions about your children, because I know that you're very involved with them. They're your children,
Right.
but at the same time, as a counselor, anyway. I do want to continue this question. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us. Welcome back. It's Focus Today. I'm your host, Paulina Emelianova, and we're continuing our conversation about dating and how can Christians navigate in this world of dating in a godly way. Our guest is Cinda Christie, is a counselor at the Trinity Counseling Center here in Medford. Welcome again. We're talking about you counseling your children, basically raising your children.
Right.
I know they've dated, they've called you, they ask for advice.
Yes.
And you also have clients that are
Right.
the same age or different ages. When you see whether it's your child or not, how do you know when the relationship is not healthy?
Okay, I think that there are some red flags to look for. And first of all, I want to say, and I didn't say this earlier, is to really limit the physical involvement. Once you start getting a little physically involved, I think that, you know, just blurs your thinking and your clarity. And then when you do see red flags, you ignore them because you've got all this heightened emotion with the love and chemistry, and you're not really paying attention to things that you should be. So, but if you hold off on the physical completely and just keep it really just friends for a long time, you get to know the person. So some of the red flags that I've helped my kids with, and we've talked about, and also other folks, is just the first thing is, are they honest? Have you seen them do something deceptive? Have they lied about something, or even just lied for no reason? Are they a chronic liar? I mean, some people do. They just make that a way of life. Or do they cheat on their taxes? Things like that come out. The other thing I think is really important is, do they have an anger problem? Well, it's not like we all don't get angry at times, but some people have serious anger issues. And I've even said to people, you know, get into a conflict with the person that you're dating. You know, create something and just see how they respond. Are they able to deal with it, or do they get really angry? And, you know, what happens with a conflict? The other thing I think is important is to find out how they get along with their family. Do they have good relationships with their mom or their dad? And if they don't, why? I mean, not everybody does, but what are the reasons, and have they made their efforts to get along with family members? Also, are they self-absorbed? When you're with them, is it all about them? Or do they really show interest in what you have to say? Do they validate your opinion, or do they discount you and everything you say? Or do you feel stupid around them? You know, those are just things that you really want to ask yourself. Maybe this person is really good looking and charming, and yet when you're with them, you don't really feel good about yourself. And so I think that's an important key there. Another thing is, are they jealous? I know of a situation where the person was texting this gal constantly. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? What are you wearing today? It was unbelievable, and it was very controlling. Very controlling and manipulative. And so I helped her get out of that. Wow. So there are things to look for, definitely. Another thing is, are they able to forgive easily, or do they hold grudges? Are they critical of others? Do they spend a lot of time talking about other people in a negative or critical way? So you know, those are some of the things to look for, and those are red flags. And so, well, the other thing is, there may be things that I haven't mentioned, but when you're with the person and they talk about something and you have a question, like you want to find out more about it, don't ignore it. Ask the question. If you get a sense in your gut, you know, a little like, you know, ask the question. Ask the hard questions. Don't be embarrassed to ask that question. I've told people, if they're going online for online dating, to ask the question, what do you think about sex outside of marriage? Right there will eliminate probably over half, even on the Christian sites, because a lot of folks on those sites believe it's okay. Been married, divorced, at this point, they're not 20, they don't want to wait. They think it's okay if they're in a committed relationship. So that's a hard question to ask, but it's an important one.
Yeah. What about the past? Should the two people share everything about their past, do you think, or are there dangers in that?
I think initially, I don't think you know, tell someone everything, but if you end up drawing closer to becoming engaged and growing more serious, I think you do need to be pretty open and honest, because the person needs to know who you really are. You don't want to go into it being a false self or pretending that you're someone that you're not. And you know, if there are things you've done in the past that you are sorry for, we know God forgives, and that we're redeemed, and we don't have to hold on to that shame. And so once you're forgiven in Christ, the other person needs to forgive you. If they can't, then hey, there's something there.
Also, I know a lot of people, some people go into a relationship thinking that they can change that person. Not necessarily change who they are, but, you know, I say the girl meets a nice man and he's got some family problems, his mom is not very nice, he hasn't had a good home, and she takes on this role of a savior. You know, I'm going to walk into his life, I'm going to change things around, he's going to, you know, he's going to have food on the table, he's going to be loved, I'm going to be his mom, his sister, he's everything for him. And with that mentality,
the great rescuer.
Does it ever work?
Oh, I think it can, if both people agree that that's the way their relationship is going to be, and the person, you know, agrees that she's going to be the mom in the relationship and he's going to be more of the child. It'll be a parent-child relationship. And if they both agree to that, great. But at some point, she may get tired of being mom and may get tired of picking up his socks and, you know, making his lunch. And, you know, I've seen that too in couples coming in, and, you know, man spending one whole session with a man angry about the lunches his wife was making him and how they weren't the way he wanted them. And, you know, I got a sense that it was more of a parent-child kind of situation. All
right. What are your thoughts on online dating?
Well, I think online dating, you know, it has a lot of benefits, and, you know, it's a larger pool of people to meet. And, of course, there's lots of Christian sites now, and I know even Focus on the Family has Christian Cafe, and there's Christian Mingle and eHarmony. I mean, there's a lot of sites out there, and a lot of folks are online. It is an opportunity to meet single people who are Christian, who are looking. I think there are dangers with it, too. For one thing, it's virtual, so the person's not in front of you, and you're not getting to know them on a day-to-day basis in the midst of other people, in the midst of other situations, and so I wouldn't recommend staying online too long before you actually meet them, because I do know of lots of stories when the person's finally met. One person was, 30 pounds heavier, or they looked a lot older and grayer, and they'd put a picture on of themselves 10 years ago when they were working out and looking great, and that was the picture, and then they're representing their true self. So there's some problems with that. I think it's also easy for people to cover up things about themselves, and you don't really get to know someone fully until they move to the area. I would recommend, if they're not in the area, to move to the area and live separately and get to know each other and date within community. Meet your friends, meet your family, go to your church, and then their true character will come out eventually. And I also say to people to pray and ask the Lord to show you their true character. And when people do that, they over and over, they'll come and tell me, this happened, and this horrible thing, or a good thing, and they recognize the person really is, wow, who they said they were, or they're not. So if you really pray and you're seeking the Lord, He will show you their character. You just have to be listening and not ignoring it. I think when people want to fall in love so badly, they ignore some of the red flags.
Any advice to local churches you want to give as far as helping singles?
I think that is a concern. I know in the area, I really don't know of many Christian singles groups. I think churches kind of avoid them. I know there have been problems with singles groups, and there have been, kind of people being perpetrators on others and things like that. There have been some issues. I think it has to have, I really believe, a couple to supervise. So there's somebody, a Christian married couple to supervise a singles group. So there's someone there for the men, someone there for the women. And I think that's just an area that's lacking in the Valley. I think our churches really focus on the family. But we have lots and lots of single people who are either divorced, widowed, or never married, who are kind of, trying to find their way in the church and finding a place to belong. I think it's an area that's not really being addressed.
All right, thank you. And lastly, before we run out of time, can you go back to what we started the program with, and kind of say a final word to those who are single? Because I know that there are a lot of singles out there, and some of them will never get married.
Possibly
some will probably not going to be dating for a while, and it's very depressing, it's very pressuring, it's very hard to be single and constantly being reminded of the fact that for some reason you're lesser than everyone else because you're not married.
Well,
and so encourage them.
Well, I want to encourage them, and I want to say too, that is a lie from Satan, that you're less than, or that you're not as of value in the community. And in fact, single people can do amazing things because they have more time, they can be more involved in the community, and I would say embrace it in this time of your life, knowing that God has put you in this place of singleness, and so use that time to get involved with other people, join a hiking club, be involved in your church, get into a Bible study, do things socially, take a cooking class, get out there, meet people, and have fun.
And pray.
And pray.
Yes.
Oh yeah, spiritual thing. Well, of course, putting that first, but don't make, I've got to meet someone, your top priority in life. Make being the best person that you can in Christ be the top thing.
All right, thank you, Cinda Christie, with us today from Trinity Counseling Center. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. Compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back to Focus Today. Well, we had a great opportunity to talk to our friend in DC, And he's actually all over. It's kind of hard to catch him. Yesterday he ran into the office, talked to us, ran back to report. Gary Bauer, he's the president of American Values, and he's on top of all kinds of things. So Perry had a chance to talk to him about the Irs Scandal, the NSA, and all the other things that are making headlines right now. So here's their conversation.
Well, as always, it's an honor to have with us Gary Bauer, and he heads up American Values. And if you're not receiving his end of the day report, you're missing out, because Gary really kind of encapsulated everything that's happening there in Washington on a daily report. And let me encourage you to sign up for that. Gary, nice to have you with us. How you doing, my friend?
Good, and thank you for that promotion for the end of day report.
I read it every day. I don't know. You help me sound smart on the air.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. For me, it's therapeutic just to get all that out and on a piece of paper and give indigestion to somebody else.
Whoa, boy, I tell you. Well, listen, how are you handling all this stuff? I mean, have you ever seen a mess as big as this one in Washington?
You know, I've been in Washington longer than I would care to admit. There's an old joke about Washington, you know, that it's a cesspool, but a lot of the people in this city treat it like it's a jacuzzi. Yeah. Just wallowing in that cesspool. I've seen a lot of scandals, but I don't think I've seen an administration that is facing almost every couple of days some new disclosure about the misuse of power.
Wow. Well, a couple of these I wanted to highlight while I have your time. It appears to me that this Susan Rice appointment was just to National Security Advisor was just an in-your-face appointment. Of course, she doesn't have to go through Senate confirmation. And I would assume that she could probably get executive privileges by the president. Therefore, she would never testify on what happened in Benghazi.
Bingo. You're exactly right. And I'm sure that played a part in the president's decision. He's taking a witness off the table. But I'll tell you something, it's also a reflection on the kind of man the president is. In spite of his public image, which remains very positive, he is in many ways vindictive. He's incredibly stubborn. And for people upset about things not getting done in Washington, you don't have to look much further than the Oval Office, because he either wants things to be done his way or it's the highway. And I think he knew exactly what he was doing when he appointed her to that post. And he really was sticking his finger in the eye of conservatives and Republicans and others who were upset that she lied on 5 Sunday television shows about what happened in Benghazi, Libya, and those tragic events.
All right, so where do you think Benghazi is going to go? I mean, do you think it's got any more legs, or is it just going to kind of fade away?
I certainly hope and pray it doesn't fade away. This is a very important issue. It's not just a one incident. It goes to the very heart of who we are as a nation. America has always believed we don't leave anybody behind, right. Whether it's a soldier or somebody from our diplomatic corps. There's a lot of evidence that the people that died in Benghazi did not have to die. And to let any administration, any government get away with lying about what happened, not completely owning up to the decisions that were and were not made, I think would be very bad for the American body politic. It would undermine the sense we have as Americans that we can trust our government to at least protect the lives of those that are serving us. So I'm encouraging everybody I can on Capitol Hill not to let this go. So I think we're going to see more come out in the weeks and months ahead.
Well, I sure hope so. I hope that the Speaker has the fortitude and the tenacity to stay with this, because if they get away with this, I mean, quite frankly, it's an impeachable offense from the way it sits today. They'd have to prove it otherwise, but just to cover this mess up and say, oh, well, those 4 lives weren't that valuable, I still think that the Secretary of State and the President needs to stand in front of those families again, as they did in that hangar when their caskets came in, and apologize for what they said.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, one of the things that this administration's been known for is they've got a very good PR operation. And we always get these photos of the president when he learns some news, or when he found out about a tragedy. And the photos, of course, show a man deeply troubled, a man often with his head down, looking as if he's in prayer or whatever. No pictures have been released about where the president was and what his reactions were when he found out that our ambassador and his security detail were under attack in Benghazi, that they needed help, that they had asked for reinforcements. It's strange that we don't know that. And several congressional hearings, both congressmen and senators have asked for an accounting. Where was the president that evening? What did he do? He didn't meet with the Secretary of Defense. He didn't meet with the Secretary of State. There's no evidence that he met with the National Security Council. We do know that the next morning, before we had even retrieved the bodies from Benghazi, the president was on a plane on the way to Las Vegas to do a multi-million-dollar fundraiser in order to bankroll his reelection campaign. So I certainly have a lot of questions. The American people should be demanding answers.
All right, over to the Irs scandal, which is huge, and I still think a lot's going to come out on that. One of the things I'm hearing is that perhaps they may take Obamacare out from underneath the IRS as a result of these hearings, among other things. Any legs to that story?
Well, Republicans in the House of Representatives certainly want to do that. They, I think, probably have the votes to do it. We Republicans do not have the votes in the United States Senate. The president has a solid majority there. And even if some Democrats defected and were willing to take Obamacare out of the authority of the IRS, the president could easily veto that bill, and there wouldn't be enough votes in the Senate to overcome that veto. So I think we're stuck with what is obviously a corrupt Internal Revenue Service being involved in a very major, significant way in the health care that we receive as American citizens. And again, this is a scandalous situation, one that I think as more and more Americans become fully aware of the implications of it, are going to demand that something be done about it.
Do you expect it to go to a special prosecutor?
You know, there's a division about that, even among good guys in Washington. Some really good conservatives want a special prosecutor. Others say, well, wait a minute, special prosecutors are appointed by the Attorney General of the United States. And quite frankly, most of us don't have any confidence in Attorney General Holder and some of the shenanigans that he's been up to. One senator joked that he didn't think Holder would resign because there were still parts of the Constitution that the Attorney General hadn't gotten around to undermining yet. So I think it's a close call about whether we need a special prosecutor or whether we just need for the congressional process to continue, even though it goes slower than many of us would like.
I don't quite understand all the protocol there, but doesn't an oversight committee, could they preempt the Attorney General and request a special prosecutor?
I think there's only very limited circumstances that they can do that. And then the other thing to keep in mind is a special prosecutor, even if he is unbiased, may very well say, it's going to take me 18 months or more to sort through all of this and to come to conclusions. And quite frankly, many of us would like to see the facts out a lot sooner than that, so that people going into 2014, when the entire House of Representatives is up for re-election and a third of the Senate, that the American people would have an opportunity, if the facts warrant, to voice their displeasure about the things that are happening in Washington right now.
Do you think the Speaker has the fortitude to stay with this and keep it going?
You know, Speaker Boehner is, I know him personally, I think he's a decent man. I'm not sure if he's up to the challenge, however, of being in combat with a president that is as relentless as President Obama is. You know, like him or love him, you got to tip your hat to the president, because the guy gets up every day and works for hour after hour trying to remake America into what he thinks it should be. Now, I happen to disagree with everything he wants to do in that redo job of this great country. But he is tireless about it, and I would suggest to the Speaker, Speaker Boehner, and to other conservatives on Capitol Hill, put your recreation aside, maybe play a little less golf, etc., and get to work defending this country from those that would like to concentrate power here in Washington, D.C., contrary to what the Constitution of the United States says.
Gary, are you there at American Values, or just kind of overall with your nose to the ground there on Capitol Hill, sensing that the American people are pushing back on this nonsense, or are they just overwhelmed with it?
It's really hard to get a feel for what matters outside of Washington. You know, we can't forget that the economy is still lousy for a lot of Americans. You know, if you own stocks, you've done better, and unfortunately I have some stocks. But if you're a manufacturing worker or a middle class or working class family, you're still living on the edge. People are still losing homes, etc. And I think there's a tendency, and understandably so, for a lot of Americans to tune out anything that's going on in Washington unless it specifically deals with their concerns, how they're going to get their kids through school, how those schools are going to be made better, how they're going to get their balance sheet straight. And I think because of all those worries, Americans don't get bogged down in a lot of the things that those of us here in Washington are very concerned about right now.
Well, Gary, you're an inspiration and delight. I want to say thank you for your many hours and being at the point of guard there in so many things. How can people sign up for your end of the day report, your daily venting?
Well, thank you for asking, and I'll try to be more general in the weeks ahead. But they can go to our website, which is ouramericanvalues.org, and there's no cost for the daily report. And we try to tell the recipients things going on in Washington that might affect their families, their values, or their businesses, and people find it quite useful. So I invite anybody listening and watching to sign up. And
how can they support American Values?
You can make a donation there on that website if you're so inclined to do so. And certainly if you like that daily report, circulate it to friends and neighbors and folks you go to church with, and by doing that, you can help us continue to grow.
All right. Thank you, Gary, for what you do. You remain in our prayers, and keep up the good work. Look forward to having you back soon.
You too. Good to be with you, and you keep up your good work and informing your listeners and viewers about the great issues affecting our country.
Gary Bauer, what an inspiration. All right, coming up next, dads. Are you the dad you want to be? Well, we're going to talk about that coming up in just a few moments with Rick Johnson, our special guest.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Well, our next guest, certainly perhaps you've read some of his books or you've heard him speak. Rick Johnson's with us today. He's also the founder of Better Dads, an organization established to empower men to lead and to serve their families and their communities. And we're going to talk to him today about a variety of things. But Rick, nice to have you. Where are you, my friend?
I'm in Portland, Oregon, Perry. Very nice to talk to you, too.
Ah, good. Portland, Oregon, just up the road a little ways. Well, first of all, you've got several seminars coming up, and let's see, the one, She's My Girl, He's My Dad, that's going to be in this September?
Going to be Saturday, September 28th. It's a father-daughter conference, and we are having men and their daughters 12 years old and older, up to adult, attend. Our goals are twofold with this conference. One, we know that adolescence is a time that fathers and daughters' relationships typically have a break in them. And so what we want to do is bring dads and daughters together during those teen years when it's so vital that fathers be involved in their daughters' lives and really try to connect that relationship and bond them deeper. The other goal that we want to do with this is that we're hoping that adult women who either don't have as close a relationship with their father as they'd like to, or even have a break in their relationship, that this is a great opportunity to come together to invite their dads and be able to repair that relationship so that they can grow and heal from some of those wounds they might have.
That's wonderful. How do people sign up for this, Rick?
They can go to our website at www.betterdads.net, and there's a link right on there to be able to sign up for it.
Okay, why did you start Better Dads?
Well, I started it. You know, I grew up in an alcoholic home. I didn't have a real good role model for a dad growing up. Had an alcoholic mother and alcoholic stepfather, and I grew up and had kids, and I was like, I have no idea what to do. I have an idea what I don't want to do as a dad, but I really didn't know what my role as a father, a husband, even as a man was. And so it was really, God really placed on my heart that men and fathers were the key to all of the problems that our culture faces. And so I just started working with some men and trying to give them some tools for their tool belt, some things that I'd learned over the years and experienced. And an interesting thing happened. I kind of made a covenant with God that this was his ministry and I'd just be available for whatever opportunities he put in my path. And I found that that's kind of a dangerous bargain to make, because he very quickly started putting opportunities that were well beyond my vision. For instance, quite quickly I had a school counselor approach me and say, you know, we have a ton of single moms that are trying to raise boys. Could you do something for them? And I was very reluctant to work with that population, and he kept coming and asking me. And finally he said, Rick, you know, it's easier to raise a boy than it is to fix a man. And I thought, so we started doing some work with single moms on raising boys to be good men, and that program really exploded around the country, and that's led to not only several books, but also fatherless boys mentoring program, as well as a camp for single moms and their kids.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Does a whole plethora of things involved with the family, not just with dads.
So what exactly do you do to empower men to become better leaders?
One of the messages that our culture does a very poor job of doing is telling men and fathers in particular how important they really are in the lives of their families. And statistics, I mean, are overwhelming on how important a father is in the lives of his children. And so, you know, that's not a message that men get very often. So one of my jobs, I think, is merely to encourage them, to tell them why they're important, and then to help to give them some tools to be able to be the kind of father that they really want to be and that their kids, you know, deserve.
That's wonderful. Your years of doing this, have you found some similarities, like what mistake is most commonly made by dads?
Well, it's interesting. I have a book, Better Dads, Stronger Sons, and in that I have a chapter that seems to be very popular called The 10 Mistakes All Dads Make. And I don't know that all dads make those mistakes. I know that I made all those mistakes, and so I can speak to them pretty clearly. You know, there's the obvious things like not spending enough time, and we all know that kind of stuff. But there's some other things that I think as dads we don't really realize how important they are, like the importance of healthy physical affection in the lives of both boys and girls. You know, we have a craving for healthy masculine affection, and it's so powerful that if we have it in our lives are blessed. But it's such a powerful need that if we don't have healthy masculine affection, we'll accept unhealthy masculine affection in its place. And so we see, you know, girls who aren't getting the kind of affection from their dad that they need, confusing sex for love in the back seats of cars. We see women in abusive relationships. We see young men joining gangs. You know, these are all desires that people have to get that healthy masculine affection from an older male.
Is it easier for a dad to raise a son or a daughter?
That's the great question. Personally, I think boys are easier to raise. You know, girls, well, my daughter, when she got to be, you know, 13 and the aliens invaded her body, things got a little weird around here. But surprisingly, when she got about 18 and the aliens left, she went back to being normal again. So I don't know. I think they each have their challenge. But just for me personally, I found that boys are a little easier to deal with.
But you know, really, Rick, research shows, and I'm sure you have can verify this, that it's amazing how much a dad can impact a daughter's life.
He really does. He's the key figure for girls, surprisingly, on how they feel about themselves, what kind of self-esteem they have. It's an interesting story that talks about that. I came home from a meeting one day, and my teenage daughter was home sick, and she was watching a program on television that was teaching young women how to be models. And in this particular session, they had an acting coach that was trying to teach them how to act. And one of the things that she was doing was teaching the girls how to cry in command. So what she did is she took these little 3x5 cards and she gave them to all the young women, and she said to them, I want you to pretend that this is a note from your father telling you that he never wants to see you again and that he's leaving. And every one of those girls literally burst into tears instantly. And then the acting coach said, now I want you to take your anger out on your father and rip those notes up. And every one of those girls just tore into those notes. And it struck me that either those young women were already the most accomplished actresses I've ever seen, or that's how powerful that relationship between the father and daughter is. And so many women in our culture carry around father wounds in their heart, and it affects their relationships on a day-to-day basis.
Boy, what a powerful illustration. You know, when raising boys, you know, we all have our, I guess, desires that they become whatever, but most importantly, I think deep in a dad's heart, they want their son to be a man of integrity. What can a father do in those young years to begin to instill that kind of a quality?
Well, and we know, of course, it's obvious, but I'm not sure that we really apply it. But our kids do what we do, not what we tell them to do, right?
Right.
And so that's the big thing. If we want our kids, I teach a program called Raising Kids of Character. And I'm not really teaching the parents how to teach their kids how to have character. I'm teaching the parents how to have character, because that's what their kids are going to model. And so I think that's the most important thing, is that we need to recognize that whatever we want our kids to be like, that's what we have to do. That's what we have to model.
Whether a son or a daughter, how do you make sure that they have a relationship with Christ? I mean, you can't force them to do that, but you can lead them to do that. And at the end of the day, we both know that's most important.
Right. And we have a huge problem, particularly with young men going away from the church once they reach, high school, college age. I personally have found that, I think you lay the best foundation that you can. And again, if you walk the walk and talk the talk, the likelihood is that that's going to be something that's more attractive for your children than if you are, hypocritical or don't walk the walk, I guess. And so just as an example, our teenage daughter, she was a very strong-willed child, and we had some very significant challenges during the teen years. It's interesting now that she's 25 years old and is matured, she's coming back to the church and is developing her own relationship with Christ. And it's just a pleasure to watch that, because, you're right, it's not something you can force, but I think it is that you lay the foundation and you lay one with authenticity, and our kids are going to be much more attractive to that than they would be otherwise.
Well, that's wonderful. All right, so you got quite a few seminars coming up, but if you're interested in She's My Girl, He's My Dad, building a relationship to last for fathers and daughters, that's going to be in Portland coming up September 28th, and you can go to betterdads.net. Is that right, Rick?
That's correct.
And is that where your books are and everything, too? They can get a hold of your material there?
Yep, they can get a hold of me. They can find out all sorts of things that we're doing.
All right, and you're available maybe to do seminars in churches and stuff like that?
I speak all over the country and Canada.
Okay, good. Well, what fatherly advice can you leave us with today?
Well, fatherly advice, I think, is that it's never too late. Sometimes we make mistakes. None of us are perfect. I can write about this because I've made so many mistakes that I hopefully have learned from them. A lot of dads, I think, are discouraged. A lot of dads come from situations where they're separated and not living with their kids, and they're very discouraged about their relationship. And it's never too late. God has placed within your children the huge desire to love and respect their father. And nobody can take that away. Sometimes we can do things or say things to make them put up guards, but I've never seen a situation where a father didn't come back and ask for forgiveness, that eventually those guards didn't come down, and that desire to love and respect your father didn't come back. The most important message for dads out there is that you matter. You're important. You're hugely important in the lives of your kids.
Well, Rick, thank you. And thanks for what you do. Again, betterdads.net, a great resource for you. Keep up the good work, my friend, and someday we'll get you down here.
Great. Thanks, Perry. You too. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
All right, God bless. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.